What's going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to this week's episode of the With Her Two Hands podcast, where each week we celebrate the women who build, fix, and make the things that make the world go round with her own two hands. I am your host, Bogey, and I am a master mechanic by trade, but a supporter of women in all sorts of trades all across the board. Women generally make up less than 10% among tradesfolk, and in some industries as low as 2%. And tonight's guest specializes in vintage tractors. I'm going to go ahead and guess that there's probably not a whole heck of a lot of women doing that. And she is young. She is pretty much fresh out of school. She is in a program at McPherson College where she is getting her learn on as an apprentice, but she also has her own business. She's so passionate about what she does. She came across kind of the love of vintage tractors when she was in high school, and the rest is history. So I'm really super excited to meet her. Well, I've met her. I'm super excited to introduce you guys to her, get to know her better, hear her story a little bit more, and find out what makes her tick, what challenges she's encountered, what she's looking forward to in the future. So before we invite her to join us, I do want to say a big thank you to our sponsor for this podcast episode. This series is brought to you in part by Drive Time. If you're not familiar with them, you definitely want to go check them out. They are a seller of used cars on the surface, but there's so much more to them. They do so much to help their community of employees as well as the community at large. In fact, they've partnered with myself and Girl Gang Garage to do a charity build this year coming up, an all-female charity build that will go women supporting women. So very excited about that. But they do a ton of work within their organization to really help create opportunity for young technicians and to specifically create opportunities for women and support the women within their organization. So we love companies that put their money where their mouth is and actually take action to do something about the trade deficit and the fact that we don't have enough women within the trade. So big thank you to them. And of course, huge thank you to all of you guys for being a part of the revolution, being part of this mission to normalize seeing women in the trades and have it be a non-issue, right? One day, the goal is that podcasts like these, that shows like these are completely unnecessary because women in the trades are just a commonplace, normal, everyday thing that doesn't make anybody raise an eyebrow, that I am no longer a female mechanic. I'm just a mechanic who happens to be female. And that our lovely guest tonight is not a female tractor restoration tech, but simply just a tractor restorer, and she's appreciated and loved and respected for it regardless of her gender. That's the goal. So thank you guys at home for being a part of this. If you like this show, if you enjoy these episodes, please make sure that you hit like and subscribe and leave us some comments down below so that more folks, the algorithm will work its magic and more folks will get to meet these incredible women, learn from them, hear their incredible stories, be inspired by them, and help pass this on and make sure that more young women grow up seeing these stories, knowing that it is okay for them to do whatever it is the heck they want to do. So with that, without further ado, hopefully, I'm seeing a message from our guest tonight that she is still having sound issues. We were having some sound issues before we went live, but we're going to wait a few moments until hopefully she gets that figured out. I apologize, guys. Do please hang out with us for a few moments while we try to figure this out. She is trying to get it sorted out. Gotta love technology. Um, Folks who are live, I apologize. Podcast folks, this is going to get edited out for them, so we don't have to worry about them. But appreciate you guys who are live hanging out with us nonetheless. I'm going to see if I can answer some questions that might be in the comments section. Monica is saying, riding and working on a tractor, no better way to feel badass. Absolutely, right? Actually, I can't speak to that. I've never ridden on a tractor. That would be a first for me. But I do think that tonight's guest is incredibly badass. Working on vintage stuff at all, I think is really like really vintage. The stuff that she's working on, it's not like you can just Google it or look it up. There's no YouTube videos about a lot of these things. You really have to understand the basics. And a lot of times there's probably not parts available, I'm guessing. So that's got to be a challenge and really got to be creative and you have to know your stuff, right? It's a challenge. So I think she's incredibly badass. Brutus saying McPherson. So yeah, McPherson College. If folks aren't familiar, I definitely encourage you to go check out McPherson. They are one of the I think they might be the only college that really specializes in the aftermarket and automotive and has programs that are super unique, and really you can only find them at McPherson. And hopefully when Annika gets her sound sorted out, we'll be able to her um, get her on, and we can ask her to tell us a little bit about McPherson, because I do not know a ton about them. But hopefully we will get her sorted out here soon. Am I getting a thumbs up? Maybe. Oh no, no, I'm still getting the shaking of the head. We do. I promise, guys, we do try to sort all of this stuff out beforehand, but and maybe we'll talk about doing more pre-recorded episodes in the future. I know I've asked you guys, as far as fans go, and like what you guys are the ones who are watching this. Do you like that it's live? Let me know in the comments. Do you like that it's live? Do you care whether it's live? Does it not matter? Um, I'm curious to know. Let me know in the comments, either of the live stream right now or in the video later. Um, Annika, you're saying none of your computers support streaming. You should be able to use it just through the browser and not have to do an app. Um, yeah, my apologies, guys. I feel really bad for you, but we are going to get this figured out. Um, hmm. It's tough because I want to talk to her to coach her through this, but I want to talk to you guys too. um, Bridget 350 is cheering for live. Oh, Bob, you too? Okay, but does this bother you? So, like, my concern is that this is horribly awful and frustrating to all of you guys, that we are having audio issues and challenges, right? But if it doesn't bother you guys, then it doesn't bother me. Um, Tommy Wright is saying, let me pull this. I'm going to pull this up on the screen. For a person to be into tractors, you got to learn how things work, because there's no manuals. The real early stuff, they don't go into detail, and also you have to make a lot of parts yourself as well. Absolutely, that's kind of what I would imagine. I'm not. I've never worked on tractors. I did very briefly work on like construction equipment, which was kind of similar. It's like there was no instruction manuals, there was no nothing. It was a lot of hydraulic systems and a lot of like, okay, so I found the problem. Now I have to figure out how we're going to fix this. And there's no like store to go to get the part. You've got to go find a place that makes custom hoses and get a new hose manufactured so that you can repair this piece of machinery. So yeah, it's definitely a completely different set of challenges than, say, being an auto mechanic, working on modern cars, or um, really any sort of situation where you have the opportunity to go to somebody to get advice. I am getting a big smile from her. I'm hoping that means something positive. All right. Now you guys get to not have to listen to me blab anymore. You get to meet tonight's guest. So, without further ado, never have I felt better saying that. Without further ado, let's get rid of me blabbing. Let's bring on tonight's guest, Miss Annika Ernstrom. Ernstrom?
Yes, ma'am.
Say something. You have a voice. Yes.
Oh, thank goodness.
Hallelujah. She has audio.
I'm so sorry. I went through a phone, a computer, and another computer, and not a single one worked.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I just want to assure the folks at home that this says nothing about her ability to fix tractors.
Oh, me and tech don't work very well together. We're working on that.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for jumping on and for putting up with all of this craziness to join us live. I really do appreciate it. I am so excited. We met briefly at the SEMA She Shed program booth space that we had last year at SEMA. So we met briefly, got to chat a very little bit. I know a tiny bit of your story. I know enough to know that you are a total boss. But I'm really excited to hear more about this because you don't hear that every day, right? Like you're not the norm, and I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
First, I've got to ask you, how do I pronounce your name properly? Did I mangle it?
It's Annika.
Annika?
Yeah.
And is it Ernstrom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're gonna have to this ma'am thing. I know I, that makes me feel real old.
I was taught as a respect thing.
I appreciate that. However, think of me more like an older sister, not like a ma'am.
Perfect. I can do
Okay.
that.
Okay, beautiful. Where are you from, Annika?
I am originally from San Luis Obispo, California. Beautiful Central Coast.
Okay, so you sound like somebody who's like from the deep south, but you're from San Luis Obispo, California. That is not what I expected you to say.
Yeah. It seems to shock a lot of people.
Okay, we need to hear the story. All right, so you are definitely atypical, and I love this. So let's dive in. You're born in you grew up in San Luis Obispo, California. How the heck did you go from that to somebody who says ma'am and works on tractors?
It's actually a pretty funny story. So in high school, I was planning on Air Force in my freshman year, and sophomore year, I was just playing all the sports that I could, and I was kind of just going through the motions of classes, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was planning on kind of being a pilot, but I really liked the idea that my grandpa was in the Air Force, and I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. And so I was kind of just slowly heading that route, and ag classes came about. And as I started getting more and more involved, I was raising hogs for the Mid-State Fair. And I got really lucky when you have to do an American degree, which is like the highest one that you can get through FFA.
Okay.
You have to be a part of a team. And the teams that they typically have are like livestock judging and public speaking and all that stuff. And that's great, but I was really, really shy and wanted no part of standing in front of a group of people and talking.
Okay.
And so Farm Power came about, and there's these big machines running around, and you got to work on them, diagnose them, point out parts, drive them, pretty much all these different aspects of agriculture that's more towards farming. And they didn't make you wear a pencil skirt. So I was like, I'm in.
Were there other parts of 4-H that did require you to wear a pencil skirt?
In typical FFA fashion, it is very, very formal. So you have your blue corduroy jacket, and the ladies are required to wear pencil skirts. And it is super professional, and it's a really great way of going about it. But I still have never worn a pencil skirt and have never owned one. And I could just imagine that being a disaster. So I stuck to Farm Power. They let me wear black ones.
Okay, I have so many questions. I love this already. So FFA, for those who don't know, is what?
Future Farmers of America.
Okay, so I said 4-H accidentally. That's not 4-H. It's different.
Very, very similar. 4-H is
Okay.
typically for younger groups, and it's a little bit more in depth with a wider range. FFA is pretty much when you get into high school, that's your route for agriculture, or it can be. And they've got a lot of different avenues, and it is probably one of the best things, even if you're not into agriculture, just to go through, because it builds so many leadership skills and it pushes you out of your comfort zone. And the people that are a part of it are just genuine good people that are there to just, oh, you need help with that? I got you. And they're like that all the way through.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That was not a thing where I grew up. Was that a common path in San Luis Obispo, or were you not in California anymore at this point?
San Luis Obispo is definitely a college and tourist town for the most part, but it is very agriculture oriented, as we have a lot of vineyards. Same with pastorals. Very, very widely known for that stuff. And so farming and raising animals and stuff is a really big ordeal.
Interesting. Okay. I had no idea. I'm learning so many things. This is fantastic.
In the mountains, a lot of fun stuff.
Okay. Okay. So And what got you into FFA to begin with? Like just because you weren't interested in the studies and that kind of stuff, or what? How did
Um,
you wind up there?
I really just liked the classes that they had, and they looked
Okay.
interesting. And I was like, you know what? This first year, I see all the animals at the farm, and it was either Air Force pilot or vet. So you kind of just like completely different directions. And
Okay.
so I started taking like their vet science classes and all that stuff. And I saw that they were raising hogs, and I was like, okay, that looks like fun. And so we ended up getting lots of little piglets at the farm, and it was so much fun.
I love it. But then don't you have to slaughter them?
We don't. Pretty much the best way that it was put is if you weren't doing it, they'd be somewhere else at like a slaughterhouse. So you're giving these pigs the best life that they can possibly have. And I kid you not, those pigs get tubs of ice cream. Like they get to
What?
go for walks. We would run around the school campus. Like we had such fun. Those pigs are your best friends. And so it's pretty cool. They have a really good life and you keep going and you do it again the next year.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So you start out doing animal studies, vet stuff, but the fact that there was no pencil skirts required in and farm equipment is a whole line of study. That is a whole program.
No, so FFA is not it's a part of school, so they have all their ag classes, but
Okay.
FFA in itself is also an extracurricular. So it's
Okay.
partially so all your hours for raising hogs and stuff, it's fully outside of school. Farm Power is an extracurricular, so it's detached from the actual classes, but they'll have you studying during classes and stuff like that. You travel for state competitions, for local competitions, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it's pretty much just something that gets you involved and gets you going further down a career path or just learning something new.
Okay.
Hmm.
How was so I'm taking it that in an organization I'm filling in blanks here and probably some of my own bias might be showing, but I would assume in an organization that requires women to wear pencil skirts, maybe more traditional gender roles are believed in. How was it received that you wanted to do the path that you wanted to do?
They loved it. They were
Yeah?
very kind. It is mostly really kind and genuine people, and they're going to support
Nice.
you in your way. There are definitely some people that are a little more traditional, and that's fine. But they, for the most part, they were like, shoot, only girl on the team? Great, go for it. And we ended
I
up
love it.
another gal or two and competing and stuff, and it went really well for the most part.
All
The best
right.
you have no coach, so all of these teenagers running around just trying to figure it out and learning as you go. And yeah, granted there were only like 5 of us, so we had a really good time though, and we had some intermittent coaches that would come in, and I can tell you I learned the most probably from that little bits that we have with them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Was it love at first sight for you? Like, was the minute, because I know you said when we were talking offline a little bit that you had very little knowledge of motors and engines and kind of the mechanic side of things.
Yeah. So while we were doing Farm Power, because we didn't have a coach, some days we were kind of just goofing around in the shop. Like you got nothing to do. Like nobody wants to do anything. You got a bunch of teenagers. What else are you gonna do?
Okay.
Two of the guys were restoring a tractor for the local competition, and I was every once in a while I was like, you know what, I want to learn something. Like I'm curious. I don't know what this is, but it was this cute little farmall that was sitting in there, and this thing was fully torn apart. And I was like, that's really cool. Like it is. I've never seen anything so thrashed. Like that thing had seen better days. And so it's just oozing every fluid that it possibly could. There's rust and everything everywhere, rats' nests. And I was just like, that's interesting. I don't know what all these parts go to. And they're like, we'll teach you. So one of the guys would sit down with me and he'd sit there and teach me bits and pieces as they went. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And one day after a football game, because I was the photographer for football,
Okay.
uh, they, yeah, completely other, like, I don't know, career path, whatever you want to call it.
Hobby. I love it. I mean, you're a woman of many talents and lots of different interests. There's nothing wrong with that.
I can't hold still very long. I got to find other things to
Fair
do.
enough. Okay.
You can see it with my hands. Um, they were playing, and one of the other guys was talking. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I entered that competition. I got a little Massey Ferguson that he was working on, and that's pretty cool." And I was like, "Man, kind of like would be interested in that at some point because I saw how the first one had come out at the Mid-State Fair. This thing was beautiful and they placed. And so I was like, you know what, that would be cool. And my best friend's dad at the time was like, you wouldn't. And I was like, ooh. And he's joking because he knows that I'll do it if he says like that I can't. And so we were talking for a little while. And after that football game, the guy's like, watch this. And he made the phone call right then and there. And the next week there was a tractor at my house.
Oh, dang. Okay.
And so it happened like that. And it was just uh-oh, now what? Because I don't know what to do besides the fact that maybe pull a few bolts and hopefully it falls apart. Like, I don't know.
And who was it who made this tractor show up again?
So one of my buddies called the lady that like organized the whole thing, and she's like, come into my office like tomorrow or the next day and pick out a tractor. And I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. So I went in and I actually looked at one, called my friend and was like, what'd you think? Great. Picked a tractor and
love it.
So completely on a whim, just thought it would be interesting and was like, you know what, I got the time to spare, might as well give it a shot.
I love so much about that. I love your curiosity. I love the like, I mean, clearly you were a curious child, right? You're like, I want to learn this, I want to learn this, I want to learn this other thing. Like, I just want to learn all the things, right? Um, but also the support that you got right off the bat of like, all right, let's put it on the line. Let's make it happen. Like this is
Yeah.
we can do this. Absolutely, we can do this.
Oh, yeah.
That is freaking awesome. So you now have this tractor that you are going to do something with. Um, did you love it right off the bat?
I did. There's a picture that I will never forget that feeling. We had a mentor that would come and go. He was, I think, in his 80s, and he wasn't doing so well, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So he did the best that he could with the time that he had and the energy. And so he would give us little tasks. And the first thing that he had us do was like pull off a front inspection panel on the loader that was on it. And so this thing was
Okay.
just covered in oil and grease and everything. And he knew that. And so it was like that first time that I'd ever messed with anything like that. I was like, I don't know, throw as many sockets at it as you can. Like, you just got to get there somehow. How do you get them off? Got the bolts out, and I'm standing there in the kitchen with the bolts in my hand. And I think my mom or my friend had taken the picture. And I'm just like so excited. I was like, I did it. I did it. I did it. And I had nothing else I could say. I was just standing there with bolts in my hand, covered in grease. And I was like, okay, I can't stop now. Like, let's keep going. So we just started tearing into it and going. And I will never forget that feeling.
That is fantastic. I think you have nailed it 100%. Like that is the thing. Like I did it. I did a thing. Like 100%. That is like the most amazingly addictive feeling that I think so few people get the opportunity to like actually experience that moment. So was there no turning back from that? Like once that happened, you're like hooked, you've been on down this path, like no turning back, or were there like thoughts of maybe I'll do something different professionally, like this is a fun hobby, I'm enjoying this, but when did it get serious? When did it get real?
Well, so that year went by, and you learn a lot when you don't know a lot. So I made it to the competition, like hanging on by a thread of my pants, like just barely. And I got there, and I just remember the feeling of not being able to answer the questions. And I was like, oh, I don't like that. You've stumped me, and I don't know it, and it's mine, and I'm supposed to know that. I don't like that. And so the next year, I was like, okay, game on. We're going to do this again. So I tried again, and they didn't mean it in a bad way, but they laughed because I was trying my best to be confident in what I knew, but I didn't know much. So it kind of just didn't come across great, probably. And so it's like, that's not going to happen again. That will not happen again. So the following year, I got another tractor, and I picked the one that they said don't do. I would say like a do as I say, not as I do moment.
Okay.
I did a lot. I also learned that I should trust the judgment of others for good reason.
I mean, it's hit or miss because I'm noticing a theme, right? Like, tell me I can't, I'll show you I can, which is my favorite saying, right? So, like, clearly, one person used that as motivation with you earlier in life. Like, I'm going to tell you you can't because I know that's going to make you do it. But then on the other hand, sometimes when they tell you you shouldn't, maybe they mean it. And how do you
Yeah.
try? I mean, that's a really interesting question too. Is like, how do you know whether
Yep.
to trust that or not? So tell us this story. So you picked the tractor that everybody told you not to do.
Yep.
Why was it a not to do it?
Pretty much as it was said to my face is that's not to your skill level. And I said, "Ooh, that's it. That's the one. Game on."
Okay.
And I didn't like that. I didn't know what my skill level was yet. I wanted to figure it out,
Okay.
and I felt like they didn't give me quite enough of a chance yet. And I know that they were trying to spare me some troubles. And the 3 weeks of like 15+ hour days that I pulled straight, that would have been a lot to save on because that one almost ran me into the ground. But it was something that was such a good learning experience because I did take it on. It was every nut and bolt off that thing, all the way down to the ground to the point where you couldn't tell there was a tractor there in a military tent with two other guys in the competition
Oh
because
my.
we didn't have a place to work. So it made for making good friendships, learning new things, and then coming in at the end, you really see who your friends are because they're the ones that are pulling those 15-hour days with you.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we made it, and it went fine, and I did not place. And I was like, you know what? I made it. And then we went to nationals, and it went a lot better.
Okay.
And I was pretty happy with how it went. And so I realized at that point, I was like, you know what? I can't imagine not doing this because I already have my next one and I'm not even in high school anymore. So now what? And I had just planning on going to a community college and getting my AA so that I could, I don't know, work in a shop somewhere or figure something out, continue maybe down the line of a vet. And I realized I was like, why not just go for it? Because somebody in town at a local coffee shop that I was at, I'd started going to like all the tractor shows and the car shows and stuff. And I started getting known as the tractor girl. And so I walked in, hey, it's that tractor chick. And I was like, that's it. It stuck. And from then on out, I ran with it.
I love this. What an incredible story. Your enthusiasm and your joy is like truly infectious. I feel sorry for the folks that are listening to this in podcast form and not getting to see her face like lit up talking about sharing this story and talking about tractors. It is just absolutely something, a sight to see. You clearly love this. There's not a program though for tractors, is there? Like, I could be wrong. Educate me if I'm wrong, but is there like a program to go into to be like, I want to study farm equipment as an advanced college program? I mean, there's not that doesn't exist, does it?
There are some. Um,
Okay.
they're not necessarily, I don't know that they're college degrees. They have like
Okay.
farm power and heavy duty like equipment, like maintenance and operators and all that stuff. Um,
Okay.
and then I know Caterpillar has a really good program. We've had quite a few students from the tractor program that was local here. They went off to the Caterpillar program, just super
Okay.
cool. They would work in pairs. And that's a really good opportunity. John Deere has some, and quite a few other manufacturers also have some. And it's a
Okay.
lot of very modern equipment. So it's not quite the stuff that I'm into, but it's still basic principles of like how things work. And it gets you the good
Yeah.
knowledge of like all the computers and the technology that I really struggle with. So
So how do those programs work? Because you seem pretty familiar with them, and thank you for educating me and folks that are listening at home. Is that something that like that sounds like it's all manufacturer programs, manufacturer training. Where I come from on the car world, you don't get to go to the manufacturer training until you're either already working for a company
Mhm,
or until you've already graduated from a base program. Like I had to go and get my associates in automotive technology before I could get accepted into the BMW program and get the BMW training. So
mhm,
would you be eligible as
mhm.
just a high school graduate to
Yeah.
go get Caterpillar training, or would you have to work for Caterpillar, for example?
So I think I wouldn't hold it to me because it's been quite a few years since I've spoken with
Okay.
them. But pretty much how the Caterpillar program works is they have a contract that you sign. Is you go, you get
Okay.
all your schooling done, and when you get your schooling done, you have 2 years of working for them, or a
Okay.
few years working for them, and then after those few years, you can either continue on with them or leave. Um, but
Interesting.
it ensures that they have students and then that they have workers and that
Makes
people
sense.
stuff. And at some point, that's always something good to fall back on, and that really ensures that they have jobs all the way throughout. And
Absolutely.
whether it's really big mining equipment or it's really basic stuff that you see everywhere, like on the highways and stuff, it's a really good program. It's one that I've talked to a few guys that have been in it and they loved it. But if you're not ready to put in the work and work like 8 to 9, like you're going and you're not ready to put it in, you take a year, or maybe it's not the right choice for you, but it is a really good program, especially
And
for
you can go in straight out of high school.
I believe you can go in straight out of high school. I've watched quite a few students.
Amazing.
Um, I worked with the Dewar TREP program, and so
Okay.
what we do is the TREP program was in pair with the Caterpillar program that was local to us,
Okay.
and so the students that came through, they would have an interview, and if they got accepted through that interview, then they went straight from high school. But there is an interview process, and they want to see your grades, and they want to see that you're putting in the work and that you're going to be a good fit for it.
That makes sense. Interesting. This is all incredibly fascinating. So you did your research, I assume, at the time, looked into all of these different programs. You're graduated from high school. Tell me what you decided and
Uh,
why.
there, well, thankfully, somebody at one point, I think it's quite a few years ago actually, they put in a grant of some sort for a local community college that said get kids into college, get them their
Okay.
AAs. So anybody that graduates with from a high school that's local around here within the county, they can go to that community college for free for 2 years.
Mm,
So I
wow.
said the auto program was like, you know what? 2 years, I'll have an AA, I'll have ASC certifications, I'll be good to go, and I don't have to pay for college. And I don't sit well in a classroom or at all. So that was definitely one where I was like, 2 years and out, sounds great to me. And so I started going to that program, and it was a really good place to meet a lot of people. And that's how I got introduced to SEMA and a lot of stuff.
Okay. So that was an automotive program, not a farm equipment program.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So
And
I
how
started.
did how did you like that in comparison? I mean, obviously you found your way back to tractors. Tell me the story, how this unfolds for you.
How I got to where I am now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of one of those things where you say you'll never do something and then you end up doing it. It's
Okay.
just you never say never. There's a reason for it. And I've said never a few too many times, and I'm finding out why you don't say that. Because I said no 4 year, like never gonna happen. And so I started Questa, and right off the bat, I was like, this is super cool, love it, really good professors. And then I started getting into it, and I was like, I'm getting a little bored. Like you could see that I was slacking off, and it didn't reflect so much in my grades and more in my attendance, and I was working more hours than I was in class, and it started becoming on the back burner. And I was like, you know what, I don't like how that's reflecting. I need to figure something out. And I was like, I've got a year and a half left, I might as well finish it. Life had some other plans, and I workaholic, never stop. So I did a few too much, and it landed me in a spot where I had to stop working and I had to stop school because of health
Oh,
reasons. And
oh wow.
so, yeah, don't do that one. It's not a good idea to run yourself into the ground. You think you can handle it all, but you gotta really. I'm learning the one thing at a time. Like, take it slow.
So
And
it's a hard one. Can we tell the audience real quick how old you are? Because those who can't see your face and see how young you are, can we tell everybody how young you are?
I'm 20.
She's a baby, y'all. She is an itty bitty baby and yet so wise beyond your years. I mean, this is like some serious knowledge that you are dropping and some great advice. And I just love how self-aware you are and were even a couple of years back at the time that these stories are taking place, right? Your self-awareness is absolutely incredible. Okay, sorry, continue on. So you landed yourself totally burnt out, overworked, workaholic,
Yeah.
and it takes you out for a little bit. Continue.
I'm learning. It's one of those things where unfortunately you learn the hard way. And as much as I don't like learning the hard way, I always seem to find to learn that way. Um, And it's kind of just one of those things where I'm sitting and I have no work, no school, and I'm not allowed to do anything that I enjoy because that means I have to move. And I was having some serious problems. And so I'm just sitting there like thinking, and I'm like, what do I do at this point? Because like, I don't want to go back to school. I know I'm probably not going to because I was already slacking off. And I know that like I don't know where I would want to enter into the workforce. And I had some good options where I could go work on bulldozers and operate them for like Cal Fire or something and some other stuff. And I was like, man, those are great options. And I had somebody mention McPherson College. And I was like, ooh, that rings a bell. And rewind a good year or two prior at the national competition, I met one of the professors at McPherson College. And he looks at me and goes, you'd really fit in here. You'd like this place a lot. It'd be really good for you. And respectfully, I was like, I appreciate that. I'm enjoying 2 years of college and not 4, but thank you. And now I'm at that college because that and I toured another place and that one just stuck and it felt like home. And it's like, well, shoot, can't say never anymore because here I am. And I got to that school and he saw my application come in and all he did is look at me and goes, told you. I don't know what else to do. I was like, shoot. You were
Got
right.
me. I love it. I mean, you had to get there on your own, right? Like you had to see it for yourself. It makes
So
sense. I get how
humbling.
that goes. You're not strong-willed at all. I don't know what we're talking about.
Never.
Incredible. So, okay, let's pause real quick. Let's tell everybody about what McPherson College is, because I know we've had many folks on this series who have gone to McPherson or graduated from McPherson, but tell everybody again what this school is and what makes it special, because I think it's the only 4-year,
I
right?
think as well. I think it's the only
Yeah.
4-year in the US for automotive restoration. And pretty much one of the coolest places that you can go. It is definitely something where you have to be ready to work again. You have to be willing to put in the time and the effort just as any other 4-year. You have to get through your general eds as well as all of your 3-hour long labs. Like it's something that it takes a lot, but it's worth it. They have automotive restoration, and then they have emphasis that you can have. And so there's, I think, communications, design, history, business management, and I'm missing one, tech major. So they have all of those, and you're technically an automotive restoration student. We call them auto rats. And you get through it, and then you have something to come out with, either a minor or an emphasis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how far into this program are you now?
Because I did a few years of college prior, and now I've made my only 2 years and now only 4 years into more than that. Yeah, could have been a lot easier just to go straight to a 4-year, but strong will got here. Whoops.
It all works out exactly as it was supposed to. That's all that matters, right? It all worked out. You got there.
It
Yes.
did. It gave me a little gap so that I could save up for college and so I could work on things and kind of get my life in order. But definitely was one of those, really, like, come on, you could have done this right off the bat.
I mean, let's be honest, if us as human beings could learn from other people's mistakes instead of learning from our own mistakes, we'd be a much smarter species at this point. But unfortunately, we all are afflicted with that stubbornness of really only being able to learn the hard way. So you're not
Oh,
alone.
oh, I do it every single day. And then I'm like, really? Come on. I did that yesterday.
Dang it. Okay, so we still haven't answered the question though. How far into the program are you now? What year are you in?
I'm technically through my first year, but that was
Okay.
sophomore year, so I'm going to be a junior.
Okay. Okay, so you started out as a sophomore because of your credits already.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Which is
And are you loving it? Is it everything you ever hoped and dreamed now?
I love it. I still don't sit well in class, but the teachers are very understanding and respectful of that. And it's just kind of a we're working on it thing. And I get my classwork done, and I love learning all the bits and pieces and the classes that they have to offer. I think the really special thing that they've got going for them is they teach you every aspect of restoration. So it's not just one piece, it is literally every basic that you could find. So you've got engines, chassis, drivetrain, transmissions, like everything. And then you go into paint and auto body and sheet metal and woodworking and machining. And then they give you all these routes where you can be like, okay, what do you enjoy? And you can be like, you know what? I really see myself with a career in, I don't know, working for a collector or doing maintenance on them, on these really cool cars. And I really like these kinds of cars. And so then they start looking around and they help you find a collection maybe you'd be interested in, or somebody that would do internships for you. And so over summers and winter breaks, they line you up with people that are done well for themselves and they've made a name for themselves, and you're able to go make connections and learn from people who have done a lot of work and have a lot of knowledge. And so it gets you going, and you can experiment with things with like muscle cars or European cars or pretty much anything that you want. If you want to do racing, they'll find you somewhere, but they get you to where you want to be. And everybody has a different route. I've watched a few students graduate as like paint and auto body, and they're crazy talented. I've watched others graduate as machinists and others as photographers for collections and for different like auction sites and stuff. And they're all crazy talented, but in their own ways, and they're pursuing what they enjoy.
Phenomenal. I think not enough people know about this program at all. How large of a program is it?
They accept 50 students every fall, and that is it.
Oh my goodness. So this is a small program.
It's a small program within a liberal arts school.
Okay. So McPherson is the program that's in the larger liberal arts school? What's the name of the larger liberal arts school? Or is the whole thing McPherson?
McPherson College, and then the automotive restoration program.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm learning a ton with you. You are a phenomenal communicator and a great explainer of things. So thank you. This is awesome, and I think folks at home are getting a lot out of it as well. Yeah, I think it's so incredible that they do such an involved and in-depth program, so focused on automotive restoration that like nobody knows this exists, or so few people know that it exists. And what an incredible like stepping stone into the industry.
Yeah, it's extremely, extremely unique, and everybody in it, I think it is probably one of my favorite parts about it. You get here and not one person is like the other. Like, I kid you not, it is, you walk in and yeah, you've college cliques, high school cliques, it's all the same. You're going to have that, but not a single person is the same. You have such difference of like what they enjoy doing, or just the cars that they're interested in, or the motorcycles, or whatever it is that they're interested in. There are students that have Hot Wheels collections, and there's Hot Wheel car shows that they'll do, and there's model car shows, and like just so many fun things that are out there that you do not see every day. And it's just, they're completely proud of who they are and what they enjoy doing, and they're not ashamed of it. And it's something where you get there and you're like, oh, I can be myself, and these people aren't going to kill me for it. They definitely give you a hard time because it's shop environment. It is what it is. You're gonna get that. But it's a really good community where people are there to help you, and you got good friends that are by your side that are all following something they enjoy. And I think that's a really good common ground, especially with the people that are there. Just being able to be like, I may not know what you're doing, but I'm here to help if you need it.
I love the way that you describe this community. A, it sounds amazing, but B, I appreciate the separation between, or the distinction, I guess I should say, between like, yes, we give each other a hard time, but also that it's incredibly supportive, and that you can be supportive and still have that fun shop environment where we give each other, like we razz each other, whatnot. But at the end of the day, people actually support each other 100%, and you're comfortable being you, which is you're a unique, right? You're unique. You're a young woman interested in tractor restoration, which is, I'm sure, not the norm there, but you were able to come in and just be be you.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite things. I didn't know if anybody was going to enjoy tractors there or like what they were doing. I'd been sent a few videos and stuff of like tractor pulls and tug of wars and some other things, shenanigans that had been going on. And we pulled up to the school and I start looking around and you see all these tractors that are sitting in the parking lots and the students are driving them to class. And you're like, oh, that's normal. And tractor drive after school sounds great to me. Let's go to Sonic. Like you literally just will go anywhere. We've driven for hours on end on tractors to mountains in Kansas, and it's a blast. We all have a great time.
So you showed up and you're like, my people.
Oh yeah,
You knew you were home.
it was great, and they taught me so much, and they still are teaching me more because we all have different interests still. And so, like, as much as I love John Deere's, everybody's brother's got them. I really like the stuff that I can find that's unique and a little different. And so out there, it's John Deere's. And they're teaching me about them as we go. Like there's things I couldn't have told you before I left for school. And I come back and I'm like, no, I didn't learn that in the classroom. We learned that in the shop. And there's a bunch of kids that have a bunch of places. They keep all their like projects, I guess you could say. And we all go out there and everybody's just working consistently. That's where everybody hangs out.
I love it.
It's pretty cool.
So what are you specializing in school? What's the official specialty that you're focusing on?
So my emphasis is automotive restoration with business management. I figured at some point a tech major would be really helpful, but when you take tech, that means that you go through all of the basic classes and all the advanced classes as well. And that is great, but I kind of just want to scratch the surface with it if I can. And if there's something I really enjoy and I know I'm going to need, then I'll go in depth with it. But I might as well learn about the business side of things, as I have no clue what I'm doing there and would like to learn. So figured I'd start there. And if I get to the end of that and realize, I really want a tech major or tech emphasis, then maybe we start heading towards that. But as for right now, I'm going to take business classes and all the automotive classes that I see fit and would be helpful, and anything extra that would be helpful, whether that be a photography class to help with any sort of business promotion things, as I could definitely use some technology work. But just things that are going to benefit where I'm trying to get with my business and career.
Very balanced approach, very smart. And I think it fits your personality type of I want to learn all of the things and I want to do all of the things. So this is going to keep you from getting bored. This is good. This is the personality type that should own their own business, right? Like you're driven, you're hardworking, and you want to wear all the hats and do all the things. Like that is the recipe for being a business owner. So that's awesome. So you're in school, you're doing automotive, you're learning all of the other parts and pieces too, the paint, the metal, the welding, all of that stuff. Have you been tempted away from tractors at all, or has your heart just always just constantly brought you back to tractors and that is the direction you're going to go and stay in?
I've
now
into things. I think for now I'll stick with tractors just because I love it. I love the history behind it, and each one is so different. Like actually, my computer is currently sitting on the book that I've read about it, and it was a photographer that I think inspired a lot of what I'm doing. And he pretty much went through and he took pictures of family farms around the U.S. and family farms that have been in business for a long time and the stories behind them. And it was something that was just like, that's really cool. And I like the history. And each tractor has its own little history, whether it's just within that family or it had a bigger role. My second tractor was a part of a construction company that helped build the highways up and down this area. And it was super cool because I got to meet the guys' kids that had the tractor. And they were like, oh, we remember riding around on that thing at the family farm. And I was like, okay, that alone is pretty cool. And the original construction sticker that was on there, we made sure to put it back on because that's something that it sticks with the tractor, and it should. As much as restoration is important, I think the history of it is also important. But getting back to your question, I looked into old trucks and stuff. I worked on a 43 Chevy pickup a little while ago. And
Okay.
that was fun. I like listening to that run. So maybe
Okay.
at this point, um, I've got a 76 F250, the high boys. Um,
Nice.
I've got one. And so at some point that'll be fixed up and restored. Um,
Okay.
Definitely not perfectly restored. It's going to be a farm truck like it has been. So it'll be a
Okay.
monster truck, but something fun.
So vintage tractors and vintage farm trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, that fits, that works. I think that's a good, very cool. Okay. So I love so much about your story. You're amazing. Such a unique niche. I love how early you found it in your life and how passionate you still are and clearly like this is going to take you far because you are it's your niche, it's your specialty. I love it. We have not a lot of time left, so because this hour goes so fast, and we lost a couple of minutes at the beginning.
Sorry
So
about
if we go a little bit over, I'm going to go ahead and apologize to everybody. We might go over because we had some technical difficulties at the beginning. But talk to me about your business and how this is going because you are a full-time student. We know from talking to you thus far that you are driven and hardworking and you're putting your all into it and you're probably overworking yourself, even though you know you shouldn't.
that.
So,
Know me well.
we're cut from the same cloth, so I feel you. I get it.
Yeah.
So, and you have a business on top of all of this. So, how does this work being a business owner? Why start a business while you're still in school? How is that working? Talk to me.
Honestly, part of me, I think it's a 50-50 battle. Part of me goes, what the heck was I thinking? Why didn't you wait till you were done? Like, come
Okay.
on, not
Okay.
smart. Part of me is going, this is practice ground.
Okay.
And as much as that sounds goofy,
Mm,
I I think the practice ground of college and having a business and being like, you know what, maybe I've got a little spare time because I haven't taken as many classes, or um, I don't have the time for this right now. So put it on hold. When you have a full functioning business and you're trying to kick it off the ground like that, I can only imagine that going, I don't know how to do that. Let me put it on hold doesn't exactly work. And so
mm,
the fact that I can sit down and be like, I don't know how this works. Let me find somebody that does, or let me figure it out. And then I can put it on hold till it's convenient. That usually only means like a week or two because it's still circling up here and I got to fix it. But it's one of those things where it's a really good practice ground because I can test run things. And if it doesn't work out, it's not my full time job that's getting me through everything. And it's something where I wouldn't say a ask forgiveness rather than permission kind of ordeal, but it's kind of one of those like, hey, I'm learning. Like, bear with me as we go through this. And so thankfully, I've had some really good clients so far that they treat me like family. And I think that's a really important part of it is if you are going to do business with people, you make sure that they're going to treat you well and that they're good people. And that's not always the case, but at least in this one so far, I've made it a point to that. And it's made a really big difference in how I go about things. I've done repairs here and there, and that works great, and that's fine to get by. But I think more so, it's just learning how you want to go about it and just doing it. And then if it doesn't work, you say, okay, let me backtrack and see what I can fix. So as I've been going through the motions, we've tried a restoration. And I've sat there and gone, oh boy, I got a lot of work to do, like fix the bugs. And so I've slowly pulled from it what needs to be fixed and what could be improved upon, I guess you could say, whether that's a better timeline or that's maybe a better contract or something along those lines, or maybe just a better way of keeping my time and
okay.
efficiency, and how the right tools make a really big difference. And that's a lesson I'm learning, especially when you start out with only a simple set of sockets and a few screwdrivers, and that's about it. So power tools, learning about those. And it's just kind of it's a learning process. And I think as much as I keep telling myself like, why didn't you wait until you graduated, because it is a lot, it's I think it's better off that I started out early because I'm able to slowly pick up the bugs on my time and with what I need to do.
I love that. I think you've been really smart about it, whether, whether it was 100% intentional or not, I think you've been really smart about it in the way you approach it. But I think there's a lot of important things that people need to hear in what she's saying, right? Like that she's not owning this full-fledged big business that's a 24/7 thing. You're picking and choosing your customers carefully. You're building relationship, and most importantly, you're being honest with people about where you're at and being real that this is a you're not pretending to be something different than what you are, right? And I think that is so key that you have people who are nonetheless, right? You're being honest with the right up front, and they are nonetheless saying, "Awesome, I still choose you to do this work for me. And yes, I'll go along on this journey with you as you build your business and build your skills and build your knowledge." And that is a beautiful thing. But gosh, like how far honesty gets you, especially in business.
I'm definitely learning the importance of that. It's kind of one of those things where I was really worried because I didn't know like who's going to hire a college student or a high school student for that matter, just out of high school, to do work like this. And like, who's going to trust that? Like, it doesn't matter if they've seen your work prior or not. Some of them haven't. They just, oh, you do that? Great. Here's what I need fixed. And so it's like a word of mouth kind of thing. And it's kind of one of those like, you really trust me? Like, really? And it shocks you a little bit, but the good people stick around. And it's a really good way of, I guess, weeding out some troubles as you're just trying to kick it off. I think it was definitely a part of my contracts when I do work and stuff. It states right up front, it says, I'm not here to like hold the cover over your eyes. I'm here to be honest with you. I'm a full-time college student and I'm trying to make it back. Like life happens. And sometimes I can't have a timeline on a project, especially in restorations. There's certain things where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what parts are going to disappear. I had one week where I was like, main bearings, perfect, I can get those. And I was awaiting payment for main bearings, and then all of a sudden main bearings disappeared. And they no longer make them by the manufacturer.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it was one of those, okay, learning experience. Maybe find it and buy it first, and then we move along with that. But it's and so it's really pushed off the project, and I've had to find some ways around it because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to grind a perfectly good crankshaft just to fit bearings. So we're getting there.
Fair enough. Yeah. And that is, by the way, a lesson that you will probably continue to learn over and over again if you're anything like me, because 25 years in, and I still will be like, idiot, parts in hand before you start the job, because I will still make that mistake every once in a while. And I've learned the lesson.
Oh, yeah. It's coming and going, especially with those ones. It's really difficult because a lot of times you just don't know when until you tear into it. Like you get there and you're like, oh, that ran? Really? How? And using what parts? And I had a shoot, what was it? It was a brand of truck. The emblem that was on the front of the semi at one point was curled up into a circle and made into a coil bracket and bolted to a valve cover. And it was just wobbling all around. And you're like, oh, that it stayed. Like by some miracle it did. And the tomato can that was the breather that was shoved with steel wool, like it worked. But you don't know when you get into it because you start pulling things apart and you're like, well, it worked for the time being, but it isn't going to work here. And you realize what's missing and you realize what's really causing problems. And then it becomes maybe that was a little more expensive, or maybe I don't have the parts on hand, but I have to find them. And especially it comes with pulling a lot of these apart. You got to be really careful with bearings and seals because you don't know what you can actually get again. And then it becomes a really big oopsie if you can't get them.
What are the options then if that happens? So if you can't get it, you've already torn into it. Are there places you can go to get new stuff made?
There are a few places that will do fully remade, which is fine. That just gets really pricey. And sometimes it can't be avoided because you go and you're like, that thing's really broken. Like there's no way that's going to work. And I'm not going to put it back together just as bad as it came apart. That's not how I work. And so I just ran into this about a few weeks ago. I had a PTO, like an input shaft bearing that was really bad, but it's one that you can't find very often. And so Thank goodness for tractor salvage yards. You know a few of them. You know one guy. You know all of them. He calls one guy, and then all of a sudden it's to the next one, and keep going. And so it's kind of one of those things. It's not what you know, it's who you know. They'll find you either new old stock. They'll find you one that's good off of a tractor that is parts, or you start working towards a manufacturer. That's just where it gets difficult. Sometimes there's
I,
things like crossover, but
yeah,
yeah,
I imagine it's kind of 10 times worse than just general automotive restoration because there's just so far fewer of them out
there's
there.
yeah, there's a lot more tractors out there than you think, and there's a lot more connections, though it is a small world. So everybody knows everybody, and if you don't think so, you clearly haven't met everybody because, like,
Just wait.
oh, you have no idea. You get close and you're like, that's your name. Oh, wait. And then all of a sudden they're across the other side of the country and you're like, I got a part from you. And you're like, that's how. But it's
Right.
just that tight knit of the community and people are working together to make it work for whoever's restoring said tractors or whatever little project they're doing, just putting it back together. And so,
Which also means don't burn bridges, right? So
oh,
you're learning all the lessons in this like microcosm of the bigger
oh,
industry, but
it
it's
teaches
it's all
you.
the same lessons, just that much more powerful and meaningful. And
It
yeah,
really makes a big difference to the point where um, I try to remember. So there's a book that I read that I loved because it was an author who had never messed with anything mechanical or tractors. And he's in his 50s and he goes, there's one sitting on my property. I'm going to write about it and tell you how it goes as I try to fix this. And his name was Roger Welsh. And he was big inspiration to me when I read that book. And I started looking through it and I went to go read a second book and I just did a project in class. And my buddy had been telling me about this place called Strump's Dump. And I was like, that's pretty darn cool. What's that? And he's telling me about this tractor salvage yard and all this stuff. Turns out that guy that had those tractors, that he started getting more and more of them, he was best friends with the owner of Strump's Dump. And like it was kind of one of those things where you're like, I'm reading it on paper and I get to go visit this guy next week. Like, that's so cool. And it just, those little connections, one, it teaches you not to burn bridges. And two, it just shows you how tight that community is. And everybody's there to help each other. It's not there to harm each other. They're not flashing what money they've got or what projects they've done. They're just sitting there like genuinely curious, like, look what engine I've got. Look what tractor I've got. Like, this thing's cool. You'll like this. And it's not like anything you'll ever see.
I've never seen anything like it. I am in awe of you and this whole experience and the fact that not once in your entire story have you had anything to say negative or that you had discouraged, that you got dissuaded, that you got lack of support, that you got told you didn't belong. Like none of that has come up in your experiences at all, and that it's purely been this supportive, amazing community and communities that you've been a part of that have turned you into such a well-spoken and capable and intelligent young woman.
Thank you. There have definitely
You're
been those moments. It's
sure.
just, I try my best to steer clear of them because it's not what defines you. And it's not, if you don't, if their opinion at some point isn't going to make a difference in how you go about things, then it's not something to take at heart. And a lot of times it's not something that's meant genuinely. So you just keep going on. I will tell you, I have never stood there and been like, ooh, like that hurt, except when I got laughed at. And I was like, I know they
Mm.
didn't mean that, but like that alone pushed me to do better. And it made me discouraged at times because people, good family friends and good people that like just I felt were close to me. They'd tell me that like you don't, she's not gonna make it. She doesn't have the time. She's
Mm.
not gonna be able to do it. And you hear all this stuff where people just like, really, I thought you believed in me. And that is just more encouragement to keep going rather than to make it something that puts you down. Because if you let it put you down, then you aren't gonna make it. And that's the sad reality of it. But I like to focus on the better things if I can help it. Because if you focus on the bad, that's all you're gonna see.
Amen to that. Was this always you? Like, were you always this kid that had confidence and the ability to say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to dive in anyway. I'm going to just forge ahead. No, you're shaking your head vehemently. Okay.
I was always strong-willed and stubborn, and I was willing to learn for the most part. I think that's with exceptions being strong-willed. And so, when I was really little, I was the kid that could not hold still. So I played every single sport that you possibly could. Just couldn't help it. Like, had to be moving. And I would play multiple sports at a time just so that I could sit still in class. And it got to the point where I would walk into a classroom and my teacher would ask me what book I was on. They would not ask me about the classwork. They would not ask me about other things. What book? Because I was so shy and so quiet. I would sit and read through their whole class because I either already did the homework or I would do it at the end of class and it'd be done.
Interesting.
And so I will never forget. I had one kid in like my junior, senior year of high school. And he met me, oh, nice to meet you. Keep going. Mind you, I come up to this man's armpits, maybe. Like, he's a tall dude. I'm short.
You're a wee one. Yeah.
5'2" on a good day. And he's like, oh, you're a freshman. And I was like, nope, same year as you. And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, you wouldn't believe it, right? And he's like, no, I had to have seen you here. And I was like, nope, had classes with you though. And the poor man felt so bad. And he just goes, maybe I just see over the top of you. I was like, no, dude, I was quiet. Like, I was that quiet. Nobody knew I was there. And it took up until one of my ag teachers, and I thank her for this every day, as much as it scared the wits out of me. She had told me multiple times not to read in her class, that I was strong-willed, not at the appropriate times, and reading in her class. And so she came up behind me and she slammed my book closed. And of course I'm deep in my reading, so it startles a little bit. And she's like, no, it's like, get up. Get out. Like, it's time to get up and moving. And so she would assign me tasks so I wouldn't be reading in class. And she would make sure that I had to speak in front of people instead of getting out of it somehow, or doing something for her that was beneficial to leadership or talking. And that pushed me out of my comfort zone further than anything else. And I will forever be grateful for her for that, because she pushed me. She really did. And when she knew I was uncomfortable with something, she was like, watch this. And then I had to do it. And I was like, oh, thank you. You're really too kind. And I love her to this day. She is one of the sweetest ladies. Both of them are. And they both pushed me out of my comfort zone. But holy, she knew it. And I will forever be thankful for that.
And look at you now. All right. So excuse me, we are well over our hour at this point. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to ask you my favorite final question to ask, and that is, if you had the opportunity to go back and talk to little baby Annika, what are your words of advice to her?
Oh, that's a good one. Like,
oh, whatever you want. Whatever you want.
I think there would probably be two things. One, I wish I got into it earlier, because I definitely, at like seeing all these students around me and these kids that either grew up in it and they knew this stuff and they had somebody consistently teaching them. I really wish I had started earlier, because like I'm like running to catch up, and I like some days it feels like you can't catch up, and I know that's not the point, and everybody learns at their own pace. And I definitely have a little bit slower than most pace. Some things just like knock off your head and doesn't stick, like in one ear out the other. And so it's one thing that I wish I would.
She's hard on herself, isn't she, y'all?
Well, I know it happens, because I could probably have a conversation today and not remember what we said tomorrow. So we're working on it. And that would be one thing I want to start earlier. But on the other hand, I think what has happened so far has made a lot of like where I've gotten to. That experience of just jumping into it and not knowing what was going to happen made me who I am. So part of me would change it, part of me wouldn't. As for what I would say to my younger self, just keep going, try anything. I enjoy trying new things, and I think that's just something, not letting others discourage you or taking their words to heart too much. I think it'd be a really big one.
Absolutely. You're incredible. This has been so much fun getting to learn more about you. Your story is fantastic. You are inspiring, and at such a young age, guys. Again, she is 20, like not even legal to drink yet, and yet full of so much wisdom, so many wise words. And definitely cut yourself some slack for not discovering this sooner, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's just more of evidence to those who are watching, and hopefully the world at some point, is that kids need to be exposed to all the things, because we never know what is going to light them up and inspire them and make them passionate, and allow them that opportunity to find a life that they love wholeheartedly, as Annika has, right? Like this is joy that you cannot replace. This passion is absolutely amazing, and you never know what it is that's going to light up your kid in this way, and give them that opportunity. So we have to expose them to everything. But you don't know what you don't know. You weren't exposed to it.
Yeah.
So but you have gone full steam ahead once you did, and I'm sure you are going to continue to go far. And yeah, don't beat yourself up about not remembering things, because yeah, that's just life. That's You're just human.
I'm working on it.
I don't remember what I ate for breakfast, so we're fine. We're totally fine. All right. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This was so much fun. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we more than made up for it. Folks at home, for hanging in there, I super appreciate you. You definitely were the winners in that, for those of you who did hang on and make it through the technical difficulties with us. I hope you enjoyed meeting Annika as much as I did. Make sure you go check her out. I'm going to have a link to her website, to her social media down below. If you have a vintage tractor that you need to restore, maybe you might want to reach out to her and check out what she's got going on, or just follow along on her journey, because she's so inspiring and so awesome. And of course, make sure you come back next week, because every Wednesday we sit down with another incredible tradeswoman, and I know you're going to want to meet next week's guest. So make sure you tune in. And of course, you can listen anywhere you get your podcasts. If you like this series, hit like, hit subscribe, leave comments down below, so more people meet incredible women like this boss lady right here. More people need to hear her stories and be inspired by her, and other women like her. So please make sure you help the algorithm know and spread the word. Until next time, big thank you to our sponsor, Drive Time, for help making this series possible. Go check them out as well. And until next week, be good to yourselves, be good to one another, be good human beings, and we will see you next time.